Welcome back to the channel everyone, and thanks everyone who's been watching the live matches recently. Very well received. Everyone seems to be enjoying them. Now, one thing that came from the most recent one at Barby Banks Fishery was about my light rig that I used against the far bank. So I used a 4x10 Fishery, strung out shot, and a few people asked me, why are you not using something like a 4x14 Tinks or a 4x14 Fishery or a 4x14 Fury, for example. Like you see on so many videos now, everyone's using those mudline style floats with a bulk 4 inches from the hook or even 3 inches from the hook. And that's great when you're trying to pin a rig to the bank. Like if I was fishing the edge down here, I'd definitely fish like that. But the reality is, on a lot of commercial fisheries, especially in this area, the days where you've got that shallow water to target on the far bank, they're gone. The fish have eaten the bank away. The banks have deepened off. It's just not the same anymore. You know, we're looking at venues now where you've often got 3 foot of water against the far bank, and you can either sack it off entirely because you can't get into that. You know, you hear all the videos, you need to get into 2 foot or less, but a lot of venues you haven't got 2 foot or less. You know, it's 3 foot. Barby Banks is a prime example of that. Everywhere I put my plummet on that last match, it was 3 foot, exactly 3 foot. So how are we going to catch the fish? Because we can all say, we'll just fish short or fish in the edge, but the fish like the islands, they like to be by the islands. So we've got to think about a way to catch these fish, even though probably the depths and the conditions aren't against us. And this hard pellet way of fishing with a light rig strung out is a brilliant method, and it's one that I've caught loads of fish on over the last few years, and it's something that just catches your fish. So I'm just going to show you the rig. Very simple. I've got a 4x10 Fishery. Now, it's a brilliant float, this. It's just perfect for what I'm doing here. It's got that flexi wire stem, nice bristle, slim body. Very important. That's all you need, just something like that. That kind of float. I plumbed it up so the whole body's showing. And then, the most important part is, and you'll see this a lot with my fishing, using sort of strung out rigs. And all I've got there is 3 number 10s, probably 4 inches apart, something like that. So 3 number 10s, I've got a 6-inch hook length, 0.14 for anyone who's interested, and that is it. So very light for the depth of water. You know, a lot of people now would use a 4x14 or something like that in this depth of water, but how I'm going to feed it, rattling in pellets with a pot and using the catty, this light rig will catch you extra fish. So very simple stuff, but that strung out shotting pattern will come apparent as soon as we get to the spot. Now this isn't an island, it's just a corner peg, but you'll get the gist. It's almost exactly what I was faced with at Barby Banks. It's pretty much 3 foot wherever I put my plummet along that bank at the moment. So let's get a pellet on and show you. Now, because we're fishing in the edge, because we're fishing up against an island, because we're fishing a more positive approach, I've got the pot on, but I'm not frightened to catapult as well, because if an odd pellet goes into the grass or whatever, I'm not too bothered. I'm trying to draw a lot of fish into this area. I may even catch shallow at some point against them rushes, but we'll worry about that if that happens. But all I'm trying to do is create a bit of competition, a bit of noise, and then work my rig through them pellets. So let's have a sip of my brew and let's get to it. So whereas there'll be a video coming out very soon, I was being very cautious fishing at 5 meters, trying to keep everything on the bottom. With this, I'm being a bit more adventurous. I'm being a bit more aggressive. I'm trying to gather quite a few fish. So I'm going to fill my pot up with 20 pellets or so. I'm just being a little bit more adventurous because I can. I'm trying to, this is a line where, I'm not going to say I'm going to win the match from, but it's a line where I'd expect to catch a large bulk of my fish on a day like today. So what I'm going to do, flick my rig down the slope, and then from a decent height, rattle in a few of those pellets. As you can see, a few of them have gone up. Now I'm just going to lay that float in and let it sort of fish on its own. So it's coming in there, it's not on the bottom yet. Just about on the bottom there, dotted down. Perfect. So we're just waiting for a bite. And what I'll do, I'll give it a few seconds. Oh, didn't even need it. Rattle them pellets in. And that's how good it is. It can be so good because we've presented that pellet so naturally. We're feeding quite a few pellets, so we're being nice and aggressive. And we're potentially building up a swim here that could come really good later in the session, or now. We might even catch a few carp along here. I've got the black zip on, which is a lovely elastic for this sort of fishing because it comes out nicely for the F1s, but I've got the backbone if I need it for any carp. This might be a carp actually. But I've got that option, the nuclear option if you like, of getting the catapult out. But if I can catch with a pot, I will. Like that was quick. I don't feel like the need to draw any more fish in. Yeah, it is a little carp. Oh no, it's not. Nice F1. God, he's really grown in this lake. I can't believe it. Look at the size of them. Beautiful fish. £1.5 pounds. Great fish. But that is a classic example that potted in a decent amount of pellets. I kept a few back to feed either when I hooked a fish, or if I hadn't had a bite I could just quickly rattle a few more in. You'll hear anglers talk about rattling pellets in, and that's what they mean, just sort of having them in the pot, rattling them in. So we'll put again the 20 pellets. And it's very much a method that will get better and better because we're just going to keep pinging or potting pellets in against those reeds in a nice depth where the fish are comfortable. I'm not asking them to go into shallow water or anything like that. I'm just, just rattle a few in, flick the rig in, let it come in against this lovely slope that we've got. So I'm holding that on a tight line actually this time. Let's see. On that Barbie Banks match, I had several, when I'm doing this, just holding my float, letting it come in, and the elastic came out. So they've obviously, look, they're seeing that pellet come down. I'm convinced of it like that. They're watching that pellet. So let it come in. Look, you see a little indication there. There we go. So that has 100% taken that pellet on the drop. If I was using a 4x14 or whatever's considered right for that depth of water, I wouldn't have caught that fish. Whereas that fish, you just watch them hard pellets come in, and he couldn't resist. Look, nicely hooked in the top lip. Right, lovely F1. Right in the top lip, perfect. And that, I don't need to use the catty at the minute because I'm happy with that. There's obviously some fish there. It's just a brilliant way to fish this is. And if it is a bit shallower, 2 foot, it works just as well then. But this is all about those venues where if I was to pop micros in or meat mush or ground bait in that depth of water, I'd be in a whole world of pain. I know I would. I'd be foul looking fish, having a nightmare. Whereas with this, you can control them a bit better. You can build a swim that's going to get better and better, and it just works really well. So just rattle them, a few 4s in. Now before this fishery changed, it's like these open water lakes, but this used to be a lake called Alder, which had islands running down the middle of it. And I used to do ever so well on that lake, fishing like this. Basically it was a slope against the island, so you could find a foot of water against the island and then 3 foot just down a little bit. And I used to just feed pellets with a catty, catch them on the 3 foot rig like I'm doing now, exactly the same, strung out rig. And then every now and again I'd see an odd carp go into where the pellets are spraying past. I'd quickly put the other rig on in a foot of water and catch them up there, then come back down. And it was a case of just working my 2 spots where the fish wanted to be at that time. But obviously it's changed now, and you've got a peg like this where you've got 3 foot, and then Barbie Banks, for example, where it's 3 foot everywhere. So no bites quickly this time. Oh, didn't take long though, did it? I've got the black zip on. If I was just catching F1s, I'd use the white, but because there is a chance of a few carp, I've got the black on. But because we're fishing strung out, we're getting an opportunity. We're going to catch them on the bottom, of course we are, but I'm giving myself every chance of catching an odd one on the drop. It's a little carp, that one, rather than F1. Pretty little fish, a little common. Lovely. Right in the top lip. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. For the sake of the video. Let's ping some pellets in and see what the reaction is. Obviously pinging is so effective. Please ignore the planes. I'm going to take the pot off just for clarity so you can see I'm not potting any bait in. So it might take a little while just to get going with this. Might foul look an odd one, but eventually they'll settle down and we'll catch them. Get yourself a nice little catty that's going to keep everything nice and accurate, because it can become a bit of a nightmare. So we just catted those few pellets in. Lift the float out, let it fall back in amongst them pellets. Little bite then. See, it's different already, whereas before I was potting them pellets in, waiting and getting a clean bite. I've missed a bite straight away. But what can happen with a catty? Obviously you're tempted to feed more often, but it can end up being a really, almost like build up to where the fish just lose all their inhibitions and become incredibly easy to catch. So although the pot is effective early in the session, like what we're in now, don't be frightened of the catty, because it can be the nuclear option that gets you that match win. You know, there's even the opportunity, like I said earlier, like we've got some reeds here. Odd pellet will get stuck in them reeds. Put the big, I'd always have a big head set up and sometimes go against them reeds and slap against them reeds. It can work really well. Obviously helps if you get your pellets somewhere near your float. That's better. What I like to do, I like to give it a few seconds and then I'll lift the float up, let it sort of fall back in. Oh, I thought that was going to be on then. There's a load of bubbles just past my float, which I can only assume to carp. But I'm always lifting the float up, letting it fall back in. See, for me, potting's best already. I can see straight away. On this day, potting's best. But we'll persevere with this until we catch one, and then, because at the end of the day I'm feeding more often now, so it's a perfect illustration that they're harder to control. As soon as you get that catty out, I keep saying it's the nuclear option, it really is. There we go. It didn't take much longer, but obviously it did take a bit longer. But obviously the benefits are the noise element could potentially draw more carp in than F1s. The pot might just draw F1s in. We don't know. Straight away I've noticed that a carp swirled about a metre to my left when I hooked that fish. This is only an F1, but that's the first carp I've seen in the area, so there's every chance that catapult noise is, nice F1, pulling a few fish in. So we'll just go out once more. I want to stick with this just in case. See if we can catch one last beastie. Great method. I love fishing like this. Because even though I missed a few bites then, it didn't take me too long, and I know that with the catty the advantage is that you're always, a lot of smeg on my line here, you're always building. Like it's going to get better and better because you're feeding quite aggressive. You're not putting loads of bait in, you're feeding just regular. So lay it down that slope. A few pellets in the pouch, and nice and accurate. Try not to get too giddy because you could end up in all sorts of issues with your bait. Someone like me who just likes to keep firing bait in, the pot is the best option because I can't stop feeding. See, there's a carp past my pole tip there. So I think that could be one. But yeah, so that's it really. It's if you are on a commercial where you're faced with that dreaded 3 foot, and I know a lot of places I go, certainly, you've got this where you go up against the island and you're like, oh, that looks nice, and you put the plummet on and you get that, oh no, and you just drop it in, and there's a 3 foot of water. Don't be scared of it, just rethink your approach. Go with a nice simple hard pellet approach like this. Think about your feeding, use your tools, your catapult, use your, nice little F1, use your catapult, use your pots, vary it through the day, think about what you're doing. Don't be frightened to set up a shallow rig as well, because like I say, if I had kept pinging pellets against them reeds, I know that the carp would start slurping in there and I could probably slap a few. There'll be some carp milling around as well that I could potentially slap at some point in the day. So just think about that, just think about what you're trying to do. It's a great method, that is. A real winner when it comes to sort of summer commercials, when you haven't got that ideal 20 inches, 18 inches of depth against your islands. So thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you again on the next video.